This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us. This is MJ DeMarco. This is Fastlane Insider Insights. It's a new segment that I'm going to try to do it at least once a month. As long as we have volunteers, we will do this. So it's kind of dependent on the community being forthcoming, with what they're doing, how they're growing their business and whatnot. Tonight we have Alan Crawley, who is the CEO, founder of Barberry Shave Coast Company. He's also the founder of Hemingway Accoutrements, which is a company he licensed to the Hemingway brand. So he'll have some information on that if you have any questions about licensing. He's someone who's actively engaged with that. You will see Alan's two websites on the screen, hopefully, if this thing is working properly, both of them. As you can see, he has a ton of reviews, and they're all pretty damn good, which basically screams productocracy if you read Unscripted, which I talk about. I will also say I'm an avid user of Alan's products. I believe I use 6 of them total, and I absolutely love them. And I don't just say that because he lives a couple minutes down the street or he's my buddy. These things are absolutely stupendous. I love it. In fact, the girlfriend now associates Alan's, well, I'm not going to say it, but his company Sense, to me, there's an inside joke there. I'm not going to say it. Yeah, so there's about 6 of his products in my bathroom. They're wonderful. If you've ever smelled, he's handed out samples at the summit last time we had that, and people just loved it. So to get started, Alan, welcome. Appreciate having
Hey,
you
thank
here.
you. Yeah, I appreciate you
Um,
asking me to be the first one. I appreciate it.
yes, the inaugural person to do it. Great. Just a little background on you. Why don't you tell us? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? How did you really come onto that idea? Was there an FTE, a fuck this event that made you say, you know what, I need to be an entrepreneur? How'd you back into that?
Well, pretty much I've just been a lifelong entrepreneur from, you know, grade school. I was buying taffy products from the wholesale club and selling them to my classmates. So, and making a pretty good markup on it then. And it seems like a lot of entrepreneurs have that type of story. But
Yep.
it was definitely the case for me. Lifelong entrepreneur. I've had varying degrees of successes and failures, mostly failures. And I think a lot of people can
Mm.
identify with that. But like most people, in the early years, like in my 20s, I was involved in several MLMs. Um, but
Oh,
most, yeah, well, yeah, you know some of those stories, but yeah, just like everybody, especially in your early 20s, you always kind of get
yeah.
sucked into them. Um, but most
Yeah, so
recently,
that's
and
interesting.
yeah, go ahead.
That's interesting that you didn't really have an FTE. You were more like you just knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the FTE probably came um, when we came to when my son and I came to the 2013 BMP meetup. Um,
Hmm.
Being around those people, all the entrepreneurs, a lot of the success that was there. And then obviously going back in February to Indianapolis to like below 20 degrees at that time. That was my
Hmm.
FTE. It wasn't necessarily based around entrepreneurship, but it was to get out of the environment and get into one that I felt was conducive for success.
Yeah,
But
one that
most
would motivate you.
recently, yeah, and it was a huge motivation.
Hmm.
But talking a little bit more about the background of business that I've had, most recently, really maybe like the last, I don't know, 15 years or so.
Hmm.
I was the co-owner of a mortgage company. I also purchased a number of real estate properties for the purpose of rehabbing them and flipping them. I think in like 4 year time, I did like 45 or 46 properties.
Oh, wow. I didn't
That
even know that.
Yeah, well, I had a very bad partnership. The last three properties that I ever did, I partnered with my accountant at the time, and the last property we did together was a nightmare, and it nearly ruined us. And I may have even mentioned it on the forum in a thread about, what was your biggest failures or something like that. Um, but we slowly but surely recovered from that, and then I ended up owning a home improvement slash handyman business.
Hmm.
Went from there after getting hurt on the job way too many times. I started a digital marketing agency, had some successes there, but now, as people can see, owning a personal care men's grooming company, two different brands. So,
Yeah, if you've come a long way. Uh,
mhm.
so why don't you tell us the origin of the company, Barberry? Um, what makes you wake up one day and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna start a shave company." What led you down to that path?
Well, really, for a long time, I'm talking at least 20 years, I have kept a small notebook of ideas, and that notebook has grown into maybe five or six notebooks, small little notebooks that you can carry in like your back pocket. And this was one
Hmm.
idea. The idea for this company was actually one I wrote down in a notebook. Let's see, the company's officially 5 years old now, but this was probably 10 or 11 years ago. I wrote the idea down in my notebook because I had became active on a shaving forum, kind of like the Fastlane forum, but for shaving enthusiasts. And I
Hmm.
kept coming across posts where people were complaining about a particular brand um, that had been purchased by a, um, a U.S. company, and they transferred all the manufacturing over to the States for this product. And in doing so, they completely, in their wisdom, completely changed the formula because they wanted to make it more or cheaper to produce. And everybody was just complaining about it. So I wrote it down in my
Hmm.
notebook. Hey, this might be an idea if we can figure out the original formulation and bring it to the market. I think we'd already have a built-in audience for it. So that's really where the idea came from. And a couple years prior to starting the business, I had become pretty um, interested in the whole wet shaving thing. It was something I can identify
Hmm.
with my dad, and it brought back memories of going to the barber shop with my dad and things like that. So as I was getting a little older, I wanted to take on some type of ritual, I guess you could say, that would help me
Yeah.
in my mind to identify, with my dad and things like that. So, and that's how
So that's
the whole
interesting.
thing
It
was birthed.
got on your radar because somebody was complaining on a forum, and that's
Yeah.
complaints are the language of opportunity. We see a lot of people complaining about certain things in the forum. I remember some years ago there was a big thread on Trello, which was a productivity app, who's actually doing real well nowadays. But a lot of people were complaining about things in that. And that's the essence of entrepreneurship is when you see complaints, you solve those little idiosyncrasies and uh, boom, you get yourself a business there. So did you do any validating or how did you commit to it in terms of time and money? What kind of struggles were there?
Well, the interesting thing is we didn't start looking at doing this until right after we moved from Indianapolis to Arizona to Phoenix, and
Hmm.
so the I was pursuing a couple of other ideas at the same time as I was testing this out, and it was about a 4 month long process of trial and error, creating the formula for the first product, which was going to be our aftershave product. Um, I knew that for instance, the very first aftershave product was the Bay Rum fragrance.
Hmm.
I knew that that particular fragrance was going to be a very popular scent. It was the fragrance that people were complaining about on the forum not being the same anymore. It's probably the oldest known aftershave fragrance in the world.
Hmm.
So I knew that there was a built-in audience for it. Um, the question was I going to be able to create a product that was people were going to rave about? Not only did it smell good, but was it something going to be that people actually raved about? Scent will only get you so far. It's got to be a very well performing product as well in this day and age. As you know, there's a lot of products out there.
So how did
So
you
I,
get? Go ahead.
I was just going to say I knew that the fragrance would spark nostalgia in older men, but at the same time, to be quite honest with you, Bay Rum fragrance was I wasn't a fan of it, and my wife surely wasn't a fan of it at all. But I thought I could replicate that nostalgia in a fragrance, but make it more modern and more appealing to a younger generation and more appealing to me and my wife, quite frankly, all while
Hmm.
making sure that it was the best performing aftershave on the market. So if I could do all that, I figured it would be a hit, and that there was already people wanting it, buying it. There
Hmm.
was a handful of other companies, and since I've done this and launched the product, there's probably been several dozen other new companies sprouting out as well. So I knew it was a built-in market for it.
So basically, your first product you didn't particularly like, nor your wife, but you
Right.
followed the information the market was telling you about it and said, "Hey, there's something here." So that's a good testimony to you don't need to be, uh, as I like to say, men can sell bras. I don't know how well they
Right.
do it, but you don't need to be a user of your product um, to actually fill market needs. Um, so what what would you say would be well, let me ask you this for that. Here's a question I've always wondered from you. And obviously don't go into too much detail here, but did you just go mad scientist in your kitchen to figure out all these scents?
I
Like
did. Absolutely. We were living in a I guess I can't remember the exact size of the apartment we moved into when we first moved here, but it was maybe 800 square feet, 900 square feet, maybe at the
oh,
most. It
yeah.
wasn't very big at all. And we had this tiny, tiny little kitchen, but it did have a walk-in pantry. So I commandeered like half the pantry, and I had all of our testing bottles stored in the pantry, letting them age. Um, but yeah, all self-taught. I found some recipes or some formulations, um, dove into chemistry websites and was
Oh
self-teaching
God,
myself
yeah.
all this stuff. And so that was part of the reason it took us 4 months to develop our very first product. I
Hmm.
had to learn a lot. And I'll tell you one thing, I I was a user of every single test batch I made. And I remember one in particular, I had way too much cinnamon oil in it, and I shaved
Uh-huh.
and splashed that stuff on my face. My face was red for a week. And I'm like, I'll never do that again. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, I'd never heard that story either. You're
Yeah. Hey, I'm full
pulling
of
back on me.
surprises. You never
So
asked.
uh, that's another great point that your startup process was a process.
Right,
You didn't log into Alibaba and say, "Hey, I want to order this scent, import it," and then you had a business. You
right.
were literally, doing Frankenstein shit in your kitchen
Hmm.
and had to learn stuff. And so that's a great testament to the process of, when you're starting something that's going to be unique. That's also part of the reason why you're on this call is because, there's nobody on this call that can say, I like what Alan's saying, and I'm gonna start one of these companies tomorrow. It's
Right,
just not possible because they
right.
cannot duplicate the process that you've had to endure. Um, so, like when analyzing what you're doing, uh, the business. How would you reflect on that with respect to sense, control, entry, need, time, and scale? What do you say the strength is? What do you think the weakness is? Or are none, and you're you
Oh
know
yeah.
it's going to happen?
Well, I think the biggest strength is entry. The barrier to entry is pretty big. As I've shared, I spent a lot
Yes.
of time and trial and error figuring out the chemistry for these products. Um, we have a unique core of products. We own the formulations for them. I know that there are a lot of competitors. Well, not a lot. Like I said, there's probably a few dozen new competitors since we started 5 years ago. And most of them that I'm referencing here are a private labeling product. That
Yeah.
significantly reduces the barriers to entry, but they're Me Too products. You know, somebody else is going to slap a
Sure.
different label on the exact same product, and what experience is there to that? And I'm not saying this, well, I guess I probably am saying this because it's my company, but we make, I would put our products up there with the best products in the world. I, I think we're the best. I think our pricing probably reflects that. Even though we're not the most expensive, we're certainly expensive. But I think that, anyway, going back to our strength, I think it's entry, definitely a big factor for us. Um,
And the weakness. What do you think you're weak on that you think you need to improve?
oh, that's an easy one. Time. Up until now, my wife and I, we've been sole workers in the business. It's just been us. We've done everything from formulating, batch production, quality testing and control, bottling, filling,
Hmm.
packaging, shipping, fulfillment. I mean, you name it, marketing, advertising, sales. We've been
Sure.
doing everything, and we're actually making some movement to rectify this. So we want to. One of the things we got to do is hire people. We're actually making our first hire probably within the next week. That's
Oh
going to
wow.
help take a lot of that task work off of us and allow us to focus more on sales and growth of the business.
Well, congratulations on that. Time is usually, I would say that's actually probably the best weakness to have because time eventually, once things start getting a momentum and growing, time is usually the last commandment to fall. Once you get hold of
Right.
processes and the human resources and other stuff about it. A couple people have commented on your marketing here and your pictures, and it's just I'm looking at your websites, and they're just fantastic. Is that something you do as well, or do you have a VA that does that, or some kind of freelancer, or is that all your skill as well?
I do all of the photography. I do all of the graphic design work. Um, I'm certainly not the best. I think I see somebody commenting on Photoshop touch-ups and stuff like that. Um, Listen, a lot of work has gone into each photo within Lightroom and then probably Photoshop as well. I'm not the best, but I decided to take up photography after I got quotes from actual real professional photographers.
Hmm.
And I was like, there's no way I can afford that right now, especially when I started doing the photography. So I've certainly gotten better over time. Um, and I just acknowledge I'm not the best out there, but it's fun. It's a creative outlet for me. And it's probably something I probably should now be sourcing out, but I enjoy it.
Oh, that's good. Um, Tell us the breakthrough moment, if there was a breakthrough moment early on, when
Mhm.
because there's usually a breakthrough moment when a company's just starting. They haven't reached a momentum phase. They really haven't validated fully the point where you said to yourself, you know what, this shit's gonna work. Or maybe it was your first sale or a review from somebody, something. Is there any kind of event like that that made you realize you were onto something?
Yeah, I think I actually shared this in my progress thread on the inside. But
Okay.
that moment was I got our first sale before we even had product available for sale. In fact, I sold my first bottle of aftershave before the bottle even had a label on it. And I had emptied a bottle. We have glass bottles. So I had emptied out a bottle of aftershave because I noticed a crack around the neck of the bottle. So I had emptied that out into another bottle, and I had this empty bottle, and I had ordered some labels, some really crappy labels, just for our first batch from a local print shop. And I went into that shop to pick them up. So I brought this empty bottle, and so I can put the label. I had something to put the label on it.
Mhm.
And when the lady handed me the labels, and I was working to put the label on, before I could even put the label on the bottle, she goes, "What's that smell?" And I was like, "Oh, that's our that's our baby. You can still smell it even though nothing was in it."
It's a woman.
A woman, and she said that this smells like what my dad used to smell like.
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, really? Did he like bay rum?" She goes, "Yeah, bay rum. That's exactly what he liked." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." I was like, "How old's your dad?" "Oh, he's like 78 or something like that, way back then." And I was like, "Well, maybe one day you can buy him a bottle." And she goes, "How much for a bottle?" And I was like, and that's people ask me, "How did you come up with your pricing?" The very first time I even gave any thought to pricing was when she asked me that question. And I go, $35. And I thought, am I crazy? I just I just told this lady $35 for a 4-ounce bottle of aftershave. And she grabs her purse and was reaching for her wallet. I was like, "Oh, wait,
wow.
we don't even have it available for sale now. I don't even have this is." She goes, "Take your labels home, uh, label one of the bottles and bring it back to me, and I'll give you cash." And I did, man. I couldn't have grabbed those labels quicker and gotten home, put the label on, came back. She gave me $35 in cash, my very first sale. And that was an amazing feeling. That was after 4 months of not knowing if this was going to work or not, for sure. You know, but when somebody actually opens their wallet and says, "Hey, I like what you got to offer here," that was a big moment. That's huge.
Yeah, that's what I call a graviton when the market bounces back to you that, hey, you know what, I want this. That's guys, that's a big sign of a productocracy if there ever was one. Um, so what do you think has been effective for you as far as growing it, into something that's instead of something that you sell one a week, you're doing hundreds a week. What would you say has been working for you?
Well, Amazon was a great way for us to launch the brand, especially back in 2014. So we learned real quick that it would work because we got sales rather quickly, and Amazon would probably be the best and the quickest way for us to grow it. And in fact, we didn't even create our website until like 8 months later. I wouldn't do it that way now. In fact, that's not how I did it with the Hemingway brand.
Hmm.
Amazon's a different landscape. The competitors are different. Competitors are more savvy now, especially in my market. So I wouldn't do it that way now. But for us in 2014, Amazon was definitely how we learned quickly that it was going to work and that we could grow it relatively quickly in the early days.
Did they give you any grief about ingredients like the alcohol or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I think I thought I made a note of this to describe. I think question one of the questions is describe one of your toughest days, and so if you don't mind, I'll just give you the answer to that one. And this was probably a couple years. I think it was 2 years after we started selling on Amazon, and our bestseller, the Bay Rum Aftershave Splash, was kicked out of Amazon FBA for
Hmm.
being a hazmat product, and namely because of the alcohol content. So that was our bestseller by far, and we were selling. I don't even remember how many we were selling back then. This was back in early 2016, maybe,
Hmm.
and it was devastating to our sales. they shipped all the product back to us. Um, and we weren't the only ones, by the way. There were a lot of competitors that were getting kicked out because of the alcohol content, but none of them reformulated. I figured out that if I was going to be a preeminent brand, that I was going to probably have to reformulate the product, but do so in a way that wouldn't affect the fragrance, the feel, and the experience
Hmm.
um, that we were known for already by that time. And it took 3 months of reformulation and testing to get it to where I could do that. So for 3 months, we were not in Amazon FBA. We were still selling as merchant fulfilled,
Hmm.
and we were still selling, but nowhere near the level we were doing. So that was really um, the one of the toughest experiences for us to date. But to answer your question, yes, once they figured out um, alcohol content and the fact that a high alcohol content can cause spontaneous combustion, especially in aircraft,
Hmm.
um, it really caused us, they erred on the side of safety, so I don't blame them at all. Um, but we did take the time to figure out a better formulation and they had to go through a testing process once I shipped it back into them. It wasn't just a matter of like, oh, cool, you reformulated, we take your word for it. We actually
Yeah.
had to provide testing documentation and all that good stuff. So it was a pain, but it was well worth the effort.
So without revealing any trade secrets, did you just have to eliminate that ingredient, or is it just a
No.
percentage or something?
Yeah, it was all based on percentages. We had to be below a certain percent
Hmm. Okay.
of alcohol content, and our flash point had to be above a certain temperature. And there was a couple other small things I don't necessarily remember right now that we had to make changes to. Um, and I think there was an addition of an ingredient that we didn't have before. So we had to go through flashpoint testing and things like that. But yeah, we were able to keep the same feel and experience. And alcohol is really good to have as in your aftershave. Um, so that's why we stayed with it.
So did you have to like submit a lab test or something, or did they do that?
No, we had to submit, lab testing. We had to submit a
Oh,
new MSDS sheets, things like that.
yeah. Okay. Well, see, this is another um, testament to your entry commandment.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
it's just entrepreneurs are not going to deal with that. They're just going to say, on to the next shiny, bright object, and we'll go from there. Um,
Right.
what would you say? Because you know, being an entrepreneur, there's a constant knowledge gap, um, insofar as marketing and advertising. You spend money and nothing happens, or you spend money, you get a return. What would you say? What kinds of things did you try that absolutely did not work that you think could translate to the same types of businesses that probably wouldn't do well with it?
That's a good question.
Like I tried to advertise on Pinterest once, and that was a dismal failure.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the 90% female audience doesn't help, but that would be like my answer to that question.
Yeah, it was, I would say probably the biggest, let me think for a second. I had done several paid inclusions into like
Oh, okay.
um, gift directory type websites. They were websites that every once in a while would do like a Father's Day gift selections and talk about
Hmm.
different types of products and recommend different products. That was a lot of money spent on those things that did not go very well at all. Matter of fact, lost a lot of money on them. And the other one was, oh man, this was probably again back in 2016. We later in the year, we had been courted by a men's subscription box company, and we had to, what we ended up doing was we provided small samples of two of our products. It went into their subscription boxes for the month. We had to front all that money. It was a lot of expense for us, which was fine. We were fine with. And it actually, what they also did was, if people wanted the full product version, then they can come back to their website and buy full product. So they were then placing wholesale orders with me. And that went pretty well for 6 months or so. And we had an agreement that they wouldn't list on Amazon and compete against me on Amazon. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, they started competing. About 6 months later, they were competing against me on Amazon. And that became about a 6 month long nightmare trying to get them to sell me back the product that they still had in inventory,
Mhm.
and get them to stop selling, because I dissolved that wholesale retail relationship with them. And that was a nightmare headache that I did not need to be dealing with at that time. So,
So an unscrupulous, I guess, would say, channel or advertising partner. Um,
right.
Now, that wasn't the you showed me. I'm not going to say the amount or anything, but you showed me a very large purchase order from another company, and I was like, "Holy shit!" That wasn't that company, was it?
No,
'Cause-
no, no, no. That was for Hemingway, and that's for a different subscription box that we just got that PO not too long ago. So yeah, this subscription box company I was just referencing was, 3 years ago or so.
okay.
But yeah.
So how would you snag? What was the process for obtaining that? Because that was a very, I mean, that freaking PO would definitely move the meter for any company.
Right.
What did you just send them product? Did you cold email them? What was the process for getting into that door?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm in a mastermind group, or I don't know if it's a mastermind group so much as it is a support group of some other Fastlaners from the forum.
Hmm.
Uh, One of them, which you'll probably have on an interview, um, was able to get into a subscription box, and he connected me with the buyer over there. So shout
Oh,
out to that guy. I don't know if he'd want me to call his name out or his screen name out today, but um, because he opened the door for me,
okay.
and that led to what it led to. So
Ah, okay. So networking on the Fastlane forum. Yay.
yeah, exactly.
Now, have you like I just came from Vegas and I stayed at the Wynn and there's just gobs and gobs of lifestyle stuff,
Right.
Chanel, I have absolutely no interest in that stuff. But as I was walking through the corridors, just looking at through the glasses and the display cases, I was like, man, Allen's shit would look great here. And it's the perfect market. Have you ever thought about, approaching any of those companies, or are they just too vertical?
No, actually, we are actively engaged in those type of shops, casinos, resorts, country clubs, men's boutiques, gift stores, gift shops.
Pro
Um,
shops, golf courses?
yes, pro shops, everything. Namely for the Hemingway accoutrements brand, because I mentioned earlier that with the Hemingway brand, we weren't really pursuing Amazon. Our strategy with the Hemingway brand is retail distribution and our website sales. And so for the retail distribution, we are specifically targeting um, those things I just mentioned. So I hired an internal sales rep. I hired a consultant inside the gift industry his own company, he's taken from 0 to 6 million in 5 years in annual revenue. So making all the introductions for me. We just, for the Hemingway brand, we just signed 2 weeks ago with a showroom out of the Dallas Marketplace or Dallas Marketplace Center, however it's
Hmm.
named. But so we will be in the June gift show there. We will be repped by 15 road reps. They represent 10 different states. They have a showroom inside the Dallas Market Center. So we have a spot in there now. So yeah, this is where there and a lot of the other shows like in Atlanta and Vegas and places like that. This is where the buyers go
Hmm.
from to figure out where they want what products they want to sell in their shops, from casinos to men's boutiques to gift shops, everything, the whole gamut. So yes, we are actively pursuing that and starting to make some headway, starting to get some good experience there and some sales already.
How prepared are you for scale? Because it sounds like there's some good things that you have coming in the pipeline that could really blow this up.
I'm not sure if we are 100% prepared, to be honest with you. I think I would be able to. We're looking at a couple of things, like an SBA loan
Hmm.
that would enable us to purchase equipment and raw ingredients, raw materials that would allow us to manufacture at much higher quantities.
Okay.
Um, for example, that subscription box that we got that PO for, that will open up a lot of opportunity for us. We're just going to take that money and reinvest it completely back into equipment and things like that to increase our production capacity. So as of right now, we're working toward that actively. We can handle quite a bit. For example, that PO, it's a large PO. We can handle all of that without any issues. If it
Oh,
got
wow.
much larger than that, it might be a struggle. So that's why we're going to take all that money and reinvest into increasing production capability.
Okay, so you are manufacturing right now. Is the manufacturing equipment for scale, like, a manufacturing facility is millions of dollars. Um, how,
Right.
what kind of, I mean, are we looking at something that's going to cost you millions or is something 50,000? Because
Well,
I picture vats, I picture you,
yeah.
with a big thing with a big vat and stirring something.
Surprisingly, it doesn't cost too much to build out a facility that, I mean, for example, $50,000 would get you a long way. It wouldn't be everything you would need, but it would get you to the next level, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So it doesn't take a whole lot of equipment to do what we do. It just takes good equipment that allows you to produce it more efficiently, quicker, things like that.
Yeah. So you have, are they two companies or are they just, are they a subsidiary?
No,
As
two
far as
different companies.
two different companies. Okay, for the Hemingway, um, for those that know, Hemingway is it's a trademark, it's a license. You can't just name something Hemingway. You have to. I mean, it's like the NBA or the NFL. You have to secure a license. You have to have a
Right.
contract. You have to do all kinds of jumping through hoops. What and Hemingway's a significant brand. How was that process that you secured that? Did you just send a sample? Did you, hey, I got a bottle I want you to smell? I'm always interested to know how these relationships, blossom, how the in is.
Right. Yeah. Great question. Well, first of all, maybe start quickly where the idea came from. Dave, Vigilante on the forum, gave a presentation at one of the BMP. Maybe it was the first summit, official summit. Maybe it was. I don't remember.
Yeah, it
But
was I think it was the
he,
first summit or the second summit.
well, he gave a presentation about licensing and his experience in the licensing, and it got me thinking while he was doing that presentation. And I was like, well, I wonder who I can license. And I had a lot of people had commented in the past up until that point that what your Barberry Coast brand has kind of like a Tommy Bahama, Ernest Hemingway type vibe to it. So that was the first thing that came to my mind, Ernest Hemingway. I said, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
if it's possible to license the Hemingway name. And immediately went home and found out that the family, the Hemingway family, actually owns Hemingway Limited, who goes through a licensing company to license out the name, signature, and likeness of Ernest Hemingway. So all I did was send an email out, say, hey, listen, this is who I am. This is the company that I run and operate right now. We were highly interested in creating a Ernest Hemingway brand of similar products in the same industry. And I don't know, probably within a few hours, I had an email back from them saying, yeah, we just took a look at your website. We like everything we see. We'd really like to talk to you. And that opened the whole door. I didn't even have to send, matter of fact, I didn't send them anything, any product. I don't know if they ever bought anything and didn't tell me about it, but they never requested any other products or anything until I actually had final formulations done for the actual Hemingway products.
So they looked at your website and said, yeah,
Yeah.
this guy looks like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was the impression that they gave me anyway. So the interesting thing is kind of like an interesting side note, and I may have told you this before, I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be new to a lot of people. When I had that initial call with the licensing company, the guy, we talked. I think we talked for well over an hour. It could have been an hour and a half or so. And one of the things he told me toward the end of it, he was really comfortable. I was feeling really good about the call because he was talking almost like we had already had an agreement. But one of the things he said was, you know what, we came across an Instagram account recently, and I looked at that thing and I thought, you know what, they almost look like an Ernest Hemingway type brand. He says, I'll figure out who it is and I'll send it to you, and maybe you could take a look at how they do their Instagram page. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Within an hour or two, I get an email. By the way, it was your company we saw on Instagram.
I knew where that was going.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was neat. So that initial call went really well, but we took a long time to negotiate an agreement. I think it was 7 months. We had a lot of family issues, some personal issues at that time with my oldest son. So I kind of lost interest in doing the licensing thing, but they never lost interest. So they kept emailing me, wanting an update, trying to work out an arrangement with me. I was not favorable to the terms that they were proposing. So I was like, listen, if it's not according to my terms or something close to what I'm looking for, I'm just not interested. And then I had a certain set of things I had pitched to them. And they weren't acceptable to that. Their initial licensing fee was way higher. The royalty fees were way higher than I was looking for. And then finally, they came back to me and they said, listen, we really want you. We'll agree to all your conditions. And I know that that's probably not typical in the industry at all, probably. And I was probably very fortunate in that. So we were able to get a licensing agreement. It was a lot of money at the time for the upfront licensing fee, but we were able to get a moratorium on the royalty payments. We did have to agree to minimum payment or minimum guarantees, but we had a 2-year period before we even had to start paying those. So we had very good, very favorable licensing terms from this company. And go ahead.
Well, it's a testament to the work, the good work you've done, that people see it, people smell it. So congrats to you. So if what is the end goal here? Sell a company for $100 million, just have a thriving business. If you do want to sell it eventually, who would be a good target? What do you see there? What do you envision?
Honestly, yeah, I would like to eventually sell. It's not something that I'd probably want to do for the rest of my life. Both businesses. In fact, I think the Hemingway line is more sellable, even in the early stages that we're in with that brand versus Barberry Coast.
Okay.
but it would definitely be something I'd be interested in exiting eventually. I haven't given a whole lot of thought to be honest with you. My main thought and focus for Barberry Coast has been to grow it. To be honest with you, the last couple of years, I would say at least, well, probably 2 years now, we've been kind of coasting by, not really growing too much, if at all, to be honest with you. We've
Hmm.
had a lot, and as you know, and I'm not going to go into it, and I've
Yeah,
detailed some of the things on my progress thread. So if anybody's interested, dig into that. But we've had a lot of family issues with the death of our son, with taking in my mother-in-law about a year and 7, 8 months ago, and then her passing, and so
hmm,
we had a lot of family turmoil and things that was really front and center in our life versus a business.
sure.
Thankfully, we had a business that continued to sell and put out, we continued to put out product, but we weren't really focused on growing it, expanding the brand, expanding distribution. But it was still producing for us and
Yeah,
providing us a lifestyle that allowed us to kind of think about other things. Um,
and
but
that's
yeah,
the
so
beauty. That's the beauty of a productocracy is, uh, you can take your foot off the gas pedal and it still
exactly.
moves. I remember in my life, I had some health issues. This was a long, long time ago. And I don't think I worked for a month, but the
Hmm.
business still chugged along. So um, that's one of the beauties of having something that, people want and people demand. So moving along, if you sold your business
Hmm.
and, had a nice little exit there, 25, 50, whatever, $50 million. What do you think your next business would be? Where do you see an opportunity? Where do you think, uh, where would you like to be? I mean, this is more mental masturbation, but
Yeah.
it could one of our listeners could hear what you say and look into it.
Well, you know what? I haven't given a whole lot of thought to what I would do. Like if I was to sell this right now, uh, when I was thinking about, you know, this question earlier before I got on the call, I still keep those notebooks of ideas. I'm constantly seeing opportunity everywhere. So I make little notes, jot things down, and I'm always confused by people that get on the forum and say, I can't come up with any ideas. I don't know what to do. I can't stop the ideas from flooding my brain, from going out to eat, to shopping,
Yep.
to driving your
Mhm.
car, to, interacting with a stranger. Ideas are constantly coming to me, and I always try to take the time to jot the ideas. So who knows? The next opportunity might be in there. I don't. I guess one of the things. There's two things probably. My dad had invented a product, and he had actually invented it for himself. He wasn't interested in going through a process of producing the product and offering it for sale. He was a long time welder, lifelong welder. That was his main career, and he created a product that helped him weld better and helped him
Hmm.
weld in a very confined space. And um, he would love for me to pursue that if I ever had the opportunity or the time to do that. And I think the product is an awesome product. I actually helped him create some prototypes about 5 years ago before we moved here. And if I hadn't come across starting Barberry Coast, I probably would have pursued that opportunity with him. Um, but yeah, he's fine. He's well off. He doesn't have to worry about inventing products. So he told me anytime you want to start working on it, you can work on it. So that's probably one thing I would do just for my dad, just to see if we can push that forward. But I think another thing, given my experience in e-commerce, something I've given some thought to is to partner with other product-based companies, companies that have innovative products, or maybe they have industry disrupting possibilities. Maybe provide some revenue optimization or um, email marketing, some branding insights. It would probably be something that I would invest in, become an
Mhm.
invested partner in the company. But that appeals to me a lot. I think we've been able to do really well, um, e-commerce wise, email marketing wise,
Well,
and I think
I'm glad to hear it's not crypto.
Crypto
Crypto.
away from me, man. I don't know nothing about it. I have no desire to learn anything about it, man. I'll stick to my wheelhouse. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I don't, no interest.
So to wrap this up, what business tools do you recommend that are in your field?
Oh, I don't know. I think one of the biggest tools I use is Klaviyo email system. It's
Could you spell
expensive,
that?
but if you, Clavio, I think, Clavio.com. It's the biggest money maker for our business outside of Amazon. So whenever we send out emails, um, we are our conversion rate's probably over 20%, maybe a
Oh
lot higher than
wow.
that, depending on the promotions.
Could you
Our
post that in the
usual,
form?
I think I probably posted something in there
In the
in
email thread?
the email marketing AMA thread I have on
Okay.
there. Not hasn't been a whole lot of interest from forum members on there, so I haven't been posting a lot in there, but I can certainly keep providing updates in there. But yeah, Klaviyo is a big one. So it's expensive. It's way more expensive than like Mailchimp and other providers out there. But if you use it, it will work.
Okay.
And I think Shopify is so simple to use. If you're not trying to sell guns or something illegal or perceived dangerous, you don't have to worry about Shopify coming in and shutting you down. I know there's been posts on the forum where people say, "Oh, you don't have control with Shopify." I think that's
Hmm.
very little issue that anybody would need to be concerned about. I think
Yeah.
another big tool is having a bookkeeper. We hired a bookkeeper a couple months ago, and it has made a huge difference for us. So um,
Good.
bookkeeper probably wasn't on anybody's radar, but it has really helped help us get our finances and our tracking and financial organization,
Hmm.
everything down pat. So,
Book you would recommend? Not something I've written.
well, if you've already read, um, I've shared a lot of book recommendations on the forum, so it really comes down to reading whatever book's going to help you in your current situation.
Oh, great answer. Stop the action faking of book reading. Read what's stopping your
Yeah.
progress. So
Yeah, what's
finally, what?
stopping your progress, man? And
Yeah,
read
exactly.
something that's going to help you with that. Big time. For example, I said that we were looking to hire our first employee. So I've been digging into the book Clockwork by Mike McAllowitz, the guy that wrote Profit First. And it was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
book, Profit First, that helped us get our finances in order. So they're not 100% in order, but we are certainly working toward that. But so that's two examples. So when you realize you need to get your finances in order, um, and you don't know what to do, grab a
Hmm.
book. If you're looking for help on branding, I
Yep.
contributed to a story branding thread on the forum today. If you're looking at doing that, you'll dig into those type of books.
Yep.
It just depends.
So for someone that's out there that's listening that has no business and they're maybe one of those people that you say, I got no ideas. By the way, I'm the same way. I have a notebook and it is
Hmm.
just filled with
Right.
with opportunities that I just look at and go, oh my God. And then actually there's some things in there um, that I had to cross off because they're now, you know, done. Someone, someone went and did it. I mean, these are ideas that are several years old, but yeah, I got the same thing. What advice would you give a new entrepreneur who hasn't, I guess, either answer either one, hasn't found their idea or has not reached a growth, a growth phase where they're still kind of like, I'm not sure if this is going to work.
Well, I'll tell you what. Andy Black has mentioned on the forum numerous times. How you do anything is how you do everything, and so this is going for people. Well, I guess it could be applied to new entrepreneurs or people who haven't even started yet. The world is a world of abundance. I used to have a scarcity mindset back in the day. It's not scarcity. I mean, this is a world of abundance. So you should operate your business with integrity. Listen, Business is brutal. It's a dog eat dog world for sure. I'm not
Yeah.
going to argue that with anybody. But you know what? You can conduct your business with character and integrity. Full stop. Leave the lying, the deception, half truths, to use your term, bro marketing,
Yeah.
sabotage. Leave all that to those that are less than you. Go out there and create a productocracy, and then focus on sales, 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 sales. That's key to getting started. And hey, listen, if you don't have any ideas, jump into the forum, go to the INE section of the insiders. There are some really good ideas in there. You don't
Yeah.
have an excuse anymore to say you don't have any ideas. You can jump in there and grab something.
And some of those ideas can give you another idea that's not even posted there.
Exactly. You can read
So,
something and say, hey,
all right. Well, that concludes the main portion. If there's any questions from any of the people that are on the call, I know there were some questions that were posted long ago when it first started, so I don't think I can scroll up to see that.
let me
Uh,
think. Yeah, I think I can. I think you can separate the chat box and then enlarge it. Yeah,
uh,
you can.
oh yeah, okay. Uh, it says here you wouldn't take a normal route starting in Amazon like you did in 2014. If you had to redo it now, what would you do instead?
Uh,
Like just starting one
it
product.
depends. Yeah, it depends. Um, I would suggest anybody if you're going to start a business, you know, uh, think about your branding up front. You know, you need to really think about that. And I'm not talking about what your logo looks like or what your business cards are going to look like. I'm talking about creating a brand and experience um, that your customers will be able to identify with. I'm not saying not to start on Amazon. I'm not saying that at all, at all. I know there's
Oh
still people.
yeah.
I know there's still people, but I would have a multi-pronged approach. I would launch on Amazon. I'd launch on our website, depending on the product, the niche, the industries. Maybe even look at retail distribution. Um, or affiliate sales or influencer marketing. That's one thing we really didn't talk about, and I could just touch on it real quick. You were
There's
actually the
actually a question
person. Oh, is it? What
there.
was it?
Well, it says your Instagram strategy, which is kind of ties in with
Oh,
influencer strategy.
yeah. So in the beginning, when I started selling on Amazon, you were the person that told me, say, hey, listen, you should consider, you know, starting an Instagram page and posting pictures of your products and stuff on there. And I was thinking to myself, what? Because I knew my target market was probably 40 plus men, 40 years old and older. I was like, what 40-year-old men are going to care about shaving products on Instagram? Are they even on Instagram? I don't even know. And so, to my surprise, I went on Instagram and quickly learned that there's a hashtag called hashtag shave of the day. And I put that in there, and I was pleasantly surprised to see how many men were taking photos every single day of the products that they used to shave with that day.
Hmm.
And I was like, holy crap. And so I immediately started up an account. So in the early days, Instagram was key to driving traffic to our Amazon page. Because, like I said, it was 8 months after we started selling on Amazon before we even created a website. So we were helping drive that early traction via Instagram. So we were doing giveaways and promotions, and we were linking directly to our Amazon account for those from Instagram.
Hmm. So, what is not, I'm not sure if that's a trade secret. What's the difference between Hemingway and Barberry Coast? Why found two companies? And that's a good question. Why found two companies? Are you diverging your effort?
Yeah, we are. But it was actually a requirement in the early stages of the negotiation with the licensing company. The Hemingway brand was actually going to be an additional fragrance line for Barberry Coast. And then after some thought and some counsel, they counseled with their attorneys, and they thought the best course of action was to create a completely separate business entity. And it's exactly what we had to do. So I think it's probably best anyway to keep the two business separate. Like I said, I think Hemingway would probably be more appealing for a potential buyer at this stage anyway. But it has caused some distraction, if you will. I've actually struggled, to be honest, with maintaining consistent push on the business. Product development, marketing, sales, things like that, knowing that there are two completely different brands. I know people like Kendrick can operate 3 or 4 businesses at the same time and handle it like a boss. I have a hard time doing it. So yeah, it's something that I have to deal with, and it has probably hampered. The big thing has been Barberry Coast is the bread and butter, still is the bread and butter, because everything's going back into Hemingway that we sell. Um, but I haven't been willing to divert any attention away from Barberry Coast for the sake of Hemingway. So Hemingway has not grown as quickly as I had hoped um, until recently, since we started hiring some
Mhm.
consultant internal sales reps. So we've
Did
been
you
managed.
did you keep the original formula when you had to change the alcohol?
Mhm.
Did you keep the original and have a different one, or did you just get rid of that altogether? The alcohol formula that Amazon had a problem with.
Um, I mean, I still have the formulation documented. um, I don't offer it anywhere else.
Okay, so you don't sell it anymore.
No, 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 not at all. I see somebody said I bought the Barberry beard oil during the call. Thank you very much, Roman. I appreciate it. Hopefully, you'll be like MJ and brag about the products after you use it. So we
Do you
appreciate it.
use your products? Jeff wants to know. Do you even use your product? And then, that's a good question because I've actually, I mean, I've hung out with you, and I don't
Uh-huh.
smell it on you. Do you not use your own products?
I actually use more of our unscented line than I do anything. I do have sensitive skin. So um, I do use the products. Now, I have a full beard now. I mean, it's not long or anything, but I keep a beard now. So I do use our beard oil, namely the Hemingway beard oil, because of the fragrance. I mean, the Hemingway fragrance is unlike anything else out there. It took me 6 months to develop that fragrance, by the way. And it's really popular. And we're getting ready to release our new EDP cologne for that. So my favorite scent when I do use it is going to be Barberry Coast. It's our best seller. I love the fragrance now because of our version of it. And so when I shave my neck and my cheek line, and sometimes I even shave my head, I will likely use Barberry Coast products. The Bay Rum product. So yes, I do use our products.
Uh, One more question because we're now over an hour. Um, can the Hemingway revoke your license? Is there a control issue there? What prevents them um,
Yeah.
for just throwing a wrench in everything, or is that in your contract?
In our contract, the only way that they can revoke the license is if I'm not living up to the sales projections that I've provided. So my sales projections have been very conservative, which they agreed to. And that's the only way. If I fall below that for more than like, I think it's 3 consecutive quarters, then they can revoke the license.
Can you retain the scent? Because the Hemingway scent,
Ah,
that's my favorite. I love that stuff. Can you
right.
retain that if that happens?
Well, I was lucky enough to make sure that they knew they did not own any of the formulation. So what I did was I have a separate entity that owns all of our formulations, from fragrance formulations to product formulations. And the Hemingway LLC that I created to do the Hemingway license uh, rents or license those formulations. So the Hemingway company that I formed does not own any formulations. I own that in a separate entity.
All right, folks, that's going to conclude the call. There are some questions here still coming in. Just post them on the forum, the call thread, and Alan, when he has time,
Yeah.
will do his best to answer them. So thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some value on it, and we'll see you on the forum.
Hey, MJ, real quick.
Yes.
Is there a way to export this chat transcript or no?
Yes, I did record it. So as soon as I finish recording,
I'm talking about the chat. You know, everybody asking questions. Can you like
uh,
export that into a PDF or no?
I will look. I'm not
Okay.
sure, but I will examine it.
Sorry, guys. If you, I'm sure there were questions we never got to. Jump onto the